Welcome back to today's Explainer, Focused Learners. Okay, so we're looking at a pretty fascinating paradox today. We all know those brilliantly smart people who just seem to constantly spin their wheels, right? And then, on the flip side, we know seemingly average people who achieve staggering, absolutely massive levels of success. So why is that? Well, the source materials we're diving into today reveal that true success requires way more than just raw intelligence. It actually demands a highly specialized playbook, one that masters the internal world of your mind, the hidden psychological traps of money, and the unvarnished real-world realities of power. So let's just dive right into this. Here is our roadmap for today's Explainer. First, focus in a distracted world. Second, overcoming your biggest enemy. Third, the hidden psychology of money. Fourth, navigating the laws of power. And finally, number 5, the ultimate form of freedom. So, let's kick things off with a pretty big question. Why do some people manage to achieve 10 times more with the exact same 24 hours we all have? I mean, it's definitely not just talent. According to the deep dive research of computer scientist Cal Newport, these high achievers have mastered a genuinely rare ability. They can tune out the noise and dive deep into hard, meaningful work for hours at a time. This is a concept he calls deep work, and honestly, it is our very first foundational pillar of mastery. Section 1. Focus in a distracted world, taking control of your attention. In our chaotic, super hyper-connected modern world, your mind is basically either your absolute greatest asset or your worst enemy. And there is an incredibly stark contrast between how most people spend their day versus how the masters spend theirs. On one hand, you've got shallow tasks, you know the ones, checking emails, sitting in endless meetings, doom-scrolling social media. These things drain your value and just completely fracture your attention. But on the other hand, you have deep tasks. This is complex problem solving, actually learning a new skill, or doing profound research. Now here's the really cool part. When you engage in these deep tasks without any distraction, neuroscientists believe you are literally physically wiring your brain for mastery. You're developing this fatty tissue called myelin that wraps right around your neural circuits, which actually makes them fire faster and cleaner. And you simply cannot get that from multitasking or endlessly scrolling a feed. No way. So you're probably wondering, how do we actually do this? Well, there isn't just a single right way to achieve deep work. Finding the specific rhythm that works for you is the real secret to making focus a sustainable superpower. For instance, the monastic approach involves total isolation from distractions. It's incredible if you're a writer or a solitary researcher who needs unbroken concentration for literally months. Then there's the bimodal approach. This is where you split your days really clearly between deep and shallow work, which is great for academics or professionals who still have to handle administrative tasks but need to produce profound results. Now, if you work a standard job, the rhythmic approach might be your best bet, basically blocking out consistent daily hours before the chaotic 9 to 5 even begins. And finally, we have the journalistic approach. This is all about diving into deep work whenever a random pocket of free time magically appears, making it highly suited for busy executives or parents who just have to seize the moment whenever they possibly can. And listen, sometimes you literally have to go to extremes to protect that focus. Take J.K. Rowling, for example. She was really struggling with the daily distractions of kids, dogs, just normal everyday life, while she was trying to finish the very last Harry Potter book. So what did she do? She actually checked into a luxurious suite at the 5-star Balmoral Hotel in Edinburgh. Obviously, the financial cost was super high, but it effectively forced her brain to buckle down and focus with absolute efficiency. The takeaway here? Sometimes extreme measures are absolutely required to truly protect your attention. Section 2. Overcoming your biggest enemy, the battle against ego. All right, we need to accept a rather harsh life lesson here. You could have the most perfect focus and the absolute best schedule in the entire world, but emotional traps, they can still completely derail your success. Why? Because your ego is your biggest enemy. And we're not talking about confidence here. Ego is that stubborn voice that flat out refuses to admit when you are wrong. It's that internal narrative that tells you not to ask for help because, you might look weak, or it stops you from starting small because of your immense pride. It's crazy, but friendships end and massive game-changing opportunities just disappear simply because people are trying to protect a super fragile image of themselves. So, to conquer that ego, our sources highlight 4 deeply humbling life lessons. First up, you've got to accept that absolutely nothing lasts forever. Not the glorious, highly successful seasons, and definitely not the agonizing, terrible ones either. Everything is transient. Second, let go of resentment. Think about it. When someone wrongs you and you hold on to that anger, they are out there sleeping peacefully while you are the one carrying around this incredibly heavy burden. It literally only punishes you. Third, stop the comparison game immediately. There's quite literally no finish line when you are constantly measuring your chapter 2 against someone else's chapter 20. It's a trap. And finally, forgive your past mistakes. You made the very best decision you could with the information you had at that exact time. They are stepping stones to learning, definitely not stop signs. Just ask yourself, how often do we completely sabotage our own peace by forgetting these really simple truths?
Section 3. The hidden psychology of money. Wealth is what you don't see.
Let's pivot outward for a second to the mastery of resources. The insights from financial expert Morgan Housel show us that navigating wealth is actually way less about spreadsheets and math, and far more about managing human psychology. Consider the really incredible contrast between Bill Gates and his very close friend, Kent Evans. Both of these guys were brilliant, super ambitious kids, completely obsessed with computers. Gates experienced the literal 1 in a million luck of attending one of the only high schools in the entire world that had an advanced computer back in the 1970s. But Kent Evans, who was equally brilliant, experienced the tragic 1 in a million risk of dying in a mountaineering accident before he even finished high school. It's a very stark, very real reminder that financial outcomes and massive success are heavily influenced by forces of luck and risk that are entirely outside of our control. A little humility goes a very long way. And understanding exactly how our desires trick us brings us to what's called the man in the car paradox. So we buy a really flashy luxury car thinking, wow, people are going to really admire me. But the truth, they aren't looking at you at all. They're looking at the car and merely picturing themselves in the driver's seat. Buying things just to look rich is a massive psychological trap. True wealth isn't the flashy car you bought or that hugely expensive watch on your wrist. Wealth is actually the money you didn't spend. It's that totally invisible safety net that gives you freedom and options when life inevitably throws the unexpected your way. $156 billion. Let that sink in. That is an absolutely mind-blowing number. Do you know what it actually represents? It represents the amount of Warren Buffett's wealth that came after his 65th birthday. Yeah, you heard that right. He is currently worth around $160 billion, which means almost the entire shebang came in his later years. This is just a profound, undeniable testament to the quiet, completely unstoppable power of compounding time. It's not about jumping in and out of the market to catch some quick win. No, it's about staying in the game long enough for compounding to do all the heavy lifting for you.
Section 4. Navigating the laws of power, mastering the external world.
Now we're going to zoom all the way out to societal dynamics, taking a really unvarnished, highly pragmatic look at how human nature actually operates in the real world, using the work of Robert Greene. Look, history has never once rewarded pure innocence. Let's go back to 1661. Nicolas Foucault, the incredibly wealthy finance minister of France, threw the most lavish, absolutely magnificent party the country had ever seen, all just to impress King Louis XIV. He really thought his brilliance and wealth would win him ultimate favor. Well, the very next day, the king had him arrested, and Foucault spent the entire rest of his life in prison. Why? Because he outshone the master. He made the person above him feel insecure, and he paid the ultimate price for it. And this fascinating history brings us to these core, totally uncompromising rules of power. Law 1, never outshine the master. You have to make those above you feel comfortably superior, or you absolutely risk their wrath. Law 4, always say less than necessary. When you're silent, it forces others to guess, and guessing makes people nervous, which makes them make mistakes. Law 15, crush your enemy completely. A wounded enemy does not forget, they literally only wait to strike back. And Law 28, enter action with boldness. Any hesitation signals weakness to everyone around you. Now, whether we like it or not, history and human structures consistently reward strategic framing and psychological control. If you don't understand these dynamics, you're severely risking becoming just another pawn in someone else's game.
Section 5. The ultimate form of freedom, synthesizing mastery.
So, we've covered the fiercely focused mind, the deeply humble approach to money, and the highly strategic navigation of power. When we synthesize all of this source material together, it all boils down to one overarching lesson. Be like water making its way through cracks. This wildly famous philosophy from Bruce Lee perfectly connects to Robert Greene's final law of power, assume formlessness. Think about it. The person who commits rigidly to just one single identity, one exact financial strategy, or one stubborn way of thinking, they become predictable, and predictable things can be destroyed.
The ultimate defense, and honestly, the ultimate mastery, is extreme adaptability. You absolutely must be fluid, constantly learning, and entirely impossible to pin down.
At the end of the day, the single highest dividend money pays is controlling your time. And the ultimate reward of doing deep work? Gaining back your time. So what will you do with your ultimate resource? Are you going to let endless distractions and a fragile ego steal it away? Or will you use this playbook to claim the highest possible form of wealth, total, unyielding control over your own life? Take a second and really think about that. Thank you so much for joining me for this Explainer Focused Learners. Keep growing, stay extremely adaptable, and I will catch you in the next one.